Hey, what's going on, Los Angeles? What is up? And welcome to the Rams Skinny here on the LAFB network. We are Los Angeles Sports, and we are heading to the playoffs officially. Rams had already clinched last week, but after a 30-25 loss to the Seahawks, not unexpected as they were playing mostly all backups on offense, and on defense, starters only played a handful of snaps. So the fact they're in this game, that's encouraging as well. We'll get into a little bit of the game, maybe talk a little bit about the offense and the output, the actual pretty high production. And Michael LeFleur called this game. I thought it was a well-called game by him. We'll see if that has an effect on kind of his role down the line. But I think we'll focus more on maybe Jimmy G. Did he show enough skinny to be that bridge QB? I don't think anyone really wants that, but did he show enough? And then we'll look at a little more into the future, but obviously later in the week, we'll do our full Rams Vikings is who the opponent is preview. So we'll get into all that, but excited to be here and just talking all thing Rams with all of you. First and foremost, my man Skinny T, what is up? Happy Monday to you. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. My neighbor just started grinding some metal, so I apologize if that annoying sound is in your ears.
I don't hear anything.
Holes at all, but oh, good. That's fantastic. I'm annoyed by it. If that
Yeah.
changes anything.
Yeah.
Anyhow, yeah. I mean, playoff football. What an exciting time of year. At this point, anything can happen. So,
Yep.
you're in the dance, baby.
Get to the dance, and anything is possible. So the Rams are in the dance. Real quick, show is always brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. Head to betonline.ag today. I believe the Rams open up as 2.5-point dogs at home. They get to host the Vikings. The Vikings are 2.5-point favorites. And you can do all that at BetOnline. They got the best spreads, money lines, odds. You can bet on any sport, but obviously the talk of the town is going to be this Rams game, and so you can bet on that. All done at betonline.ag. Tell them the guys at the Rams Skinny and LAFB Network sent you. So before we get to the future, let's talk about this game. 30-25 loss to the Seahawks again. And playoffs were locked. I think we said in our preview show we didn't necessarily totally agree with just punting this game because, I think anyone that watches would rather play the Commanders than either the Lions or the Vikings. McVay said after the game, they respect everyone but fear no one. Great quote. I mean, that's a great quote from McVay. But I respect that quote, but you still want to play a lesser opponent if you have the opportunity to. I don't think anyone would deny that. You're not going to say that in your press conference. So we both kind of were like, I wish they would at least push the starters and see, and they almost did get the win with the backups anyway. But your thoughts overall, Skinny, just overall from this 30-25 loss?
You know, it was what it was, I guess, is all where I come down on that. I'm looking at it. So this is how this is going to play out. If they win the game, everybody's going to say, see, it didn't matter. The seeding didn't matter. This is a good team. They can go out and compete with anybody. If they lose this game, people are going to be pointing to this saying, well, they could have gone to the Commanders and, taken care of business there and whatnot. So, I think it's the revisionist history of fandom. We'll kind of depend on this one, but I think they're going up against a known opponent in the Vikings, one that they put the screws on in the middle of the year that kind of signaled a big point of the turnaround. So, I think at this point it is what it is. They're going into SoFi on a Monday night, so it's I don't really have in terms of the game and the outcome and kind of the strategy around all of that. I think that's all up in the air at this point.
What did you, because again, we'll talk more about the game later, but what did you think of, I love that McVay, surprisingly, unless it just doesn't get announced as much, but he's one of the few coaches that will, in its preseason or in this situation, but he'll give his assistants opportunities to kind of be the head guys. We know about Aubrey Pleasant being the head coach in one of the preseason games, while McVay kind of stood off to the side, was even up in the booth for a little bit. In this game, Mike LeFleur gets to call plays for the first time as the Rams OC. So I love that McVay does that and really highlights his guys, but not LeFleur called a pretty good game. What were your thoughts on LeFleur and just the overall offensive production? Because Seahawks were playing pretty much all their starters on defense, to my knowledge, and Rams were playing almost no starters on offense, and they had one of their best offensive days.
Yeah, one of their best offensive days, hands down. Second best overall by yardage. They missed tying the Bills game by 1 yard, 319 yards to 320 yards of passing. So
403 total. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, 403 total. Yeah. Still second best. So a
Yeah.
little ways behind on total yards, but the passing yards is what I'm really looking at because Blake Corum goes out of this game, broken forearm. He's going to miss obviously the rest of the whatever of the Rams season there is left to be played. Kind of a big loss there, but in this particular game, they don't have Corum to go to, so they just go all out throwing and 41 times for Jimmy Garoppolo. He hits, two passes beyond the 20-yard air yard marker, both outside the numbers. So I was wrong on that one. He can hit those passes occasionally.
With
Two
the
for
Rams,
two.
I guess.
Yeah, there you go. So all good things, and the offensive line didn't play fantastically, but they did all right. Jimmy Garoppolo, I thought, was really, really nails in this game. And from the LeFleur standpoint, Jimmy Garoppolo talked about his working with LeFleur back in the day with San Francisco, and just talking about how he was one of the people that actually taught him this offense, taught him a bit about the game. And I thought, there was some 49ers plays mixed into the game plan. So I'm kind of looking at that saying, like, can LeFleur get a little bit more say in exactly how the play calling goes out, because we've seen the offense under McVay and Stafford look great, but Garoppolo's going after guys like Demarcus Robinson and Jordan Whittington. Both had really big days. Tyler Higbee also looking like his old self with several big catches, including a touchdown. So, I think in that building there needs to have that conversation, and it's something we've talked about, where there needs to be somebody to push back on McVay to say, hey, let's get Kyron the ball more. Let's try these plays and or that kind of play. All sorts of permutations there, but I think it's he had a good showing.
Yeah,
all things considered.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone's thinking this. Maybe no one cares because of it was backups or whatever. But I'm sure there's some people that are thinking, "Man, this is like an indictment on McVay and Stafford. The fact this offense looked this good without them." And I would say the opposite. I think this is a really positive thing because it shows what can be, and it can be so much better when you have the Wonderkid and McVay and Stafford and Nakua and Kupp and all these guys in the rotation. It shows what can be, but it shows, as you just said, Skinny, that sometimes you have these other people in place to, lift you up, to make you better. You don't have to all do it yourself. And McVay, I think, he's spoken on that after that 22 season where he was just, really thinking about retiring and the season wore on him and it was just a lot and said he needed to like delegate more and give more situational football stuff to other parties. And, I don't want him to not call plays. I mean, that he's one of the best in the business, but totally agree with you. This shows that LeFleur's voice should be seen as valid. And not saying McVay never thought that, but I think now it shows like, yeah, I need to like lean on this guy more, like in situational football or whatever. If LeFleur's up in the booth or calling down stuff like, hey, we need to run this. And McVay says, yeah, we're doing that. So I think it's a positive thing. It shows that he should rely on him a lot more because again, you're going up against a division rival against their number one defense. I mean, they had pretty much all their starters in and this offense looked pretty good with Jimmy Garoppolo. So let me pivot to that real quick. Jimmy G. I think we both know where we stand on him, but I'll ask you anyway. If the Rams decide to not find a new, okay, let me phrase it this way, because I wouldn't call it a report, but our good friend Gary Klein from LA Times kind of phrased it that he believes that the Stafford situation may still be year to year, even though he has 2 years left on his deal. They may reassess it, and whether he retires or decide to part ways, like it'll be a conversation. It's not just a foregone conclusion. He's playing 2 years, so he suggested like, is Jimmy G the bridge guy? Whether they draft someone, let him sit, whether they make a trade, and we floated the JJ McCarthy trade or Sam Darnold trade, which we can talk about more later. But do you think it's one game, but did Jimmy G show you like he could maybe be that bridge guy for a year while they kind of figure it all out?
Yeah, I think he's a system quarterback, and I think that he operated the system really well. He had the chance to go down and win the game, and wasn't able to knock it home there, which is kind of, a hallmark of his, not being necessarily being that comeback king, that true answer for the quarterback. And so in that way, I mean, I'm open to all sorts of options because they don't have any right now other than Jimmy Garoppolo. And my big question coming out of this game is, did he play himself into a position on another team? Are the Rams prepared to have to pay him an actual, backup quarterback, a potential starting quarterback kind of mid-range deal? I'm not saying go out, pay him $60 million or anything like that to be a bridge quarterback, but are they prepared to do that? Or are they going to get outbid by like somebody like the Colts, who are looking maybe to get somebody to back up Anthony Richardson? The quarterback position is hot commodity. So
yeah.
It's a small sample size. I thought he looked good in that sample size. So I think there is a question there. And Gary Klein is in the building day in and day out, asking questions, talking to everybody. Jordan Rodriguez, similar position. They're both beat writers. They're both in there all the time. She tweeted out before the game that they have their eye on him, assessing how everything goes. So, I think, it's a definite possibility. It's not my top choice, but then it's always like that thing. It's like, oh, you want to fire McVay? Who else? You want to get rid of Stafford? Who are you going to go to? Mm-hmm. If it's not Jimmy Garoppolo, the question mark only gets bigger. So I think, I think they got to roll the dice. I think they got to pay him what he's worth going into the next year. And this game increased his value for the Rams specifically, but across the league as well.
Yeah. I think the benefit they have in terms of money situation is, we saw this exactly last year in this last game also, where they played Carson Wentz and the Niners played Sam Darnold. And that was both their one game of the season. They've had experience before. It hadn't worked well. And Sam Darnold, after that game, got a 1-year, $10 million deal with the Vikings. Carson Wentz went and got a backup. I don't even know what his contract was. I think it was like 1 for 5 or something, even cheaper, with the Kansas City Chiefs as their backup. And then the Rams signed Jimmy Garoppolo for what, 7? 1 for 7? Or what did he get, 10?
I'm looking it up right now.
It's somewhere between 7 and 10. So I say all that because I think this game was positive, showing that he potentially can be a bridge guy. But based on history, I don't think he outpriced himself. Like when Baker Mayfield came here and played 5 games, he was outpriced. Like unless they were moving on from Matthew Stafford, they couldn't bring Baker back for a backup because he was going to get $30 million somewhere because he showed enough in those 5 games. But doing the one game, I think they'll be okay. If they want to throw him like a 1-year, $17 million, he'll make more than he made this year. If they want him back, I think any team will give him that, unless he's only seen as a backup still. But I don't think they price themselves out if that's the route they want to go. Now, if Stafford, and again, this is an offseason conversation, but if Stafford is for sure back, then I think Jimmy's gone. They got to go just draft a guy, get someone young, trade for someone young that can compete with Stafford and wait a year. I think Jimmy's only, unless he takes the same deal, 1 year, $7 million or whatever it is. But if he gets any more, you're not going to pay that because then if you're pushing his bridge year to, what is he right now? Like 33, 34?
33, yeah.
So you're pushing his bridge.
He's got to be a starter next year if they're going to offer a contract whatsoever. Otherwise, There's no reason to pay him, the amount of money. So Jimmy Garoppolo is on a 1-year, $3.2 million contract.
Okay. I don't know where I thought 7 to 10, but yeah.
Carson Wentz is 2.5 mil for the Chiefs, and Sam Darnold is 10 million for 1 year.
There, and that's mostly age, I think, because Darnold was so young. But
yeah,
and we'll see what happens with that, right? We talked about it last episode. What will happen with Darnold and the Vikings, and obviously it's very ironic that they're playing the Rams, and so for the second time this season. And so, will one of those Vikings quarterback be a Rams quarterback next year? I mean, that's definitely something we'll talk about, I think, a lot in the offseason, and maybe even a little bit in our preview show. I saw, I'll just mention it now because I don't remember what his name's like Thor.
Yeah.
I can't remember his last name. Thor something. He's a Vikings guy. I can't remember if he's like radio or I just see him on Twitter every now and then. So apologize, Thor, it's not in front of me. I doubt you're listening to this, but I don't know exactly where. And I'll talk to our buddy Matthew Collar, who does the Purple Insider podcast. And maybe we'll get him on as well because he'll have some insight into this too. But Thor was basically saying, like, no matter what, JJ is the guy. Like, it's not happening. Sam Darnold. Like, he thinks based on 1 year, you can't pay him what he's worth, even if he whatever. You just can't do it. I disagree personally, but according to him, no matter what, it's JJ moving forward, and Sam Darnold will either be back on another 1 year deal if the injury is that bad, or he'll be gone next year. So if that's true, which it is, it's not like a report. He was just speculating it on a podcast. It's just his belief. But if that's true, like if you're the Rams, we love Matthew Stafford. And everyone's going to freaking hate me for this. But you're paying Stafford. Do you still have the contracts in front? I don't know if you're on over the cap or what you're on, but Stafford, he's due what, $52 million next year?
So he's average $40 million contract per year, and his cap hit this year was $50 million. They restructured over the summer. Mm-hmm. He's going to essentially the same, just a few $100,000 more. So $50 million in this number one most expensive offense in the league.
So, and we'll see how this year goes, obviously, how these playoffs go. And I want to keep reiterating, we love Stafford. We think he has the ability to be top 10 QB. So I know we always get comments like Stafford hating. No, just, it's a discussion. All right. But we saw a definite decline in Stafford this year. Anyone that wants to argue that is just a homer and doesn't actually watch the games. I mean, even if you don't watch the games, just look at the stat lines and you can see, like, what'd you say, the most less than 200-yard games in his career?
Well, he's had something like 29 under 200 yards. 5 of them are this season.
I would say,
and some of those 29 include games he only played portions of. So
yeah. So I would say for sure, most likely this year, the most. And, people can blame injuries, but outside of that first kind of rough stretch, at least receiver-wise, he had Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp for the majority of the season, and some of those games came with both playing. Not knocking him. He's getting older. It is what it is. So the Rams will have if that's true and the Vikings are going to be willing to just walk away from Sam Darnold, regardless, if they win the Super Bowl, if they lose this week against the Rams, I think the Rams really need to look like we can pay Stafford for a $50 million cap hit. I truly believe Darnold's deal will be in that 35 to 40 range. And Baker Mayfield left the Rams after his resurgence. I think he signed a 1-year deal with the Bucs, showed he had what it take, and then his next deal was 3-year, $100 million deal. Now, obviously, that was a couple years ago, so that'll go up a little bit. But I could see Darnold getting a 3-year, $110 million deal. So you're looking at 35 to 40 million a year, not 50. So Rams really have to look like we can get a 28-year-old quarterback from Los Angeles, brought his team to 14 wins, and we can get him for $12 to $15 million cheaper if it's not a drop-off, or is it even an upgrade over Matthew Stafford? So, I mean, it's just going to be a conversation. I don't necessarily want it because I love Stafford, but it's definitely worth a conversation. What say you?
Yeah, and this is the reason I've been so, frantic about this offense in a way, is because there's this closing door, the Stafford door. Now, regardless of which side you want to be on it, we'll just keep it a window because that's what we often talk about, this window that they're in, not a door. Anyway, we've seen multiple quarterbacks of his age, of Stafford's age, getting into 36, 37, 38, they're only going 2 directions. They're staying the same or they're getting worse.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks that age don't get better. So you and I agree there's been some decline. He's losing some touch here and there. He's not fallen off. He's not, broken down old machine, but he's not going to get better from this point on. And it's not hate. It's the reality of the situation. And we've seen with some quarterbacks, Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan, Peyton Manning, they all, hit a wall. And Drew Brees, perfect, really great example there, where their play just rapidly declines starting at 36, 37 years old. And Stafford, I was looking at these numbers. Stafford compared to Brady got hit around 220 times over the last 5 seasons of his career. Matthew Stafford's been hit that many times over the last 2 years of his career. Yeah. Matthew Stafford's career and Tom Brady's career, in terms of their chances of longevity, you can't compare them, because Matthew Stafford has had the snot kicked out of him year after year, including the last 2 years with the Rams. So I don't want to get up on a soapbox about it, but like that's where it is, where it's inevitable. Father Time is undefeated. Yep. He's going to go into the retirement sooner than later. I mean, I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah.
We're not talking this year. We're not talking he's retiring before the playoffs. I would guess he's going to be the starter next year. But this is a Rams team that is forward looking, and they're not afraid. They're not afraid to make business decisions, hard ones. So I'll leave it at that before I get myself in more hot water.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, and and anyone that wants to even like bring up, and you weren't doing it in this way, so this is not directed at you at all, but anyone that even wants to like bring up Tom Brady as a comparison, like just throw it out. He's a unicorn. Like, he was played to his 45. He won was an MVP candidate at like 43. Like, that is not the norm. Greatest of all time, like freak genetics, like whatever is like body by Tom or whatever he did.
HGH, who knows?
Yeah, like just throw him out. You got to look at he is not the norm. Look at all the ones you listed. You could even say Aaron Rodgers fell off a lot this year and had his drop off, and he's obviously a little older, but we'll see. I mean, we got all this offseason to talk about it. Obviously, we are all for Matthew Stafford and believe they can. I mean, the Rams are in the dance. They can win the Super Bowl this year. It's just ironic that they play Sam Darnold and the Vikings, and will that be a conversation in the offseason? And so, we're going to preview this Vikings-Rams game, which of the two, I would have much rather them gotten this one as opposed to the Lions, because one, they lost the Lions, and two, they beat the Vikings. But I think the master playing the apprentice, being Sean McVay playing Kevin O'Connell, I think that's a real thing. I mean, Belichick was always good against his tree was just awful anyway, but Belichick was always good. It seems like the head one always does well against the protege, I guess. I mean, I know McVay and Shanahan were colleagues, but I would say technically Shanahan, he was the OC. McVay was a tight end coach. So I think, he was
one step ahead.
Yeah, one step ahead. Matt LeFleur is kind of the one that has had McVay's number, that McVay, I think, tutored him a little bit more. But typically, historically, I'm jumbling my words all together, but the top dog usually has all his baselines number. And so I think McVay has that over KOC still. And obviously we saw how well the Rams played against the Vikings at SoFi in a primetime evening game, which they will get again on a Monday night game. And then we'll kind of close with this. I saw randomly someone, I can't remember who tweeted it, so I apologize. I can't give them credit, but it was like last year, or the year the Rams won the Super Bowl, they won like 5 straight before losing their final division game. They won, and then it was something like they had to play. I don't know. There's like a lot of similarities between that season. I'll have to find it later. I don't have it in front of me, but it's very ironic. And maybe this is something special. They started off 1-4 this year, and maybe they end with some special. And I'm just pumped for this game. I can't wait to preview it with you later in the week.
2 teams have beaten the Minnesota Vikings. It's the Detroit Lions and the Los Angeles Rams. So
yeah.
And they'll play each twice this season, maybe thrice. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, it's like you're saying, of the 3, this is the one. And I got my nugget for the preview. But yeah,
great. Well, can't wait. It's gonna be fun. Rams, Vikings, Monday night. Fall to the Seahawks. I don't think anyone cares. Overall, healthy, obviously really bummed about Blake Corum, as he's the number 2 guy, and we were hoping to see some more run from him, but obviously your starters are all good to go, and cannot wait. So we will preview that game here in just a few days. Thank you all for hanging out with us as always here on the Rams Skinny on LAFB Network. If you haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. It helps us out a ton, and we certainly appreciate it. Rams LAFB is the YouTube channel if you haven't gone to it yet. Really easy to find. If you prefer audio, anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, just search Rams Skinny, and everything, audio, video, editorial, can all be found at LAFBnetwork.com. For Skinny T, I am Ryan Darrett. Everyone enjoy a few days. We'll be back with you later in the week to preview this wild card matchup between the Rams and the Vikings.